Chapter 208. Under the watchful eyes of everyone gathered in the waiting room, Yudir watched Kishir as he turned away. A myriad of tangled emotions trailed fervently on his face. Our turn is coming soon. Kishir, having surveyed everyone in the room, quietly opened his mouth. Each of us has swallowed many grievances to stand here today. The situation that will soon confront us may be frightening. However, once you are here, you are no longer a lone fighter. Despite the numerous people gathered, the waiting room was so quiet that not a breath could be heard. Without raising his voice, Kishir's words struck the deepest chords in the hearts of those assembled. When we leave this place, remember that I will always be behind you. Trust in me, and you will not regret having come this far. It was a speech of sorts, albeit just a few short phrases, but those words had a surprising power to stir the heart. Over the uneasy and anxious faces of those gathered, gradually only calmness and well crafted emotions remained. The eyes of the poor and ordinary people who were not used to fighting appeared so firm that it was hard to believe. It was a sight akin to a miracle. Even after his speech, Kishir spent the remaining time comfortably chatting with those who approached him timidly. At either side, someone lightly tapped his sleeve as he watched Kishir silently. Either the one who approached him was none other than Reverend Shan Apeto. Still doll-like in beauty, the vibrant-eyed boy stood with a taciturn boy at his side and a servant quite different from before. Yudhir greeted him with a silent nod. Revelin, this is my lover, Neon. You already know, right? And this is Pip, the servant whom Lenore had entrusted with his final letter. Yudhir was already aware that the boy accompanying Revelin was his lover, Dandelion, as he had been introduced before, but this was the first time he had seen the servant who had brought Lenore's letter. Upon receiving Yudhir's gaze, the servant turned away, stuttering silently, his face slightly crumbled. Did the three of you come to testify? Yes, it's all thanks to you and Commander. You told us that we didn't have to come if we didn't want to, even as of yesterday, and that helped all of us make up our minds. It could be dangerous, but Revlin said it was fine, a necessary act to repay a favor and a choice he had made willingly. But as Revlin was looking up at Yudhir, he mumbled with a sudden smile. This reminds me of when we first met. At the grand worship, right? Yudhir recalled the moment when Revlin first sought him out at the grand worship during the harvest festival. Revlin, who was much better now than when he had been pale-faced, pleading for help that day, looked up at him. If you hadn't taken me seriously back then, Neon and I wouldn't be here now. No, I didn't really. Thank you. Yudhir's mouth, which was about to say that he didn't do much, suddenly fell silent due to an unexpected onslaught. I just wanted to say that now. Yudhir silently looked down at the boy. His feelings were odd. He didn't know how to respond. As if to say he didn't need to, Revlon lightly tapped Yudhir's arm. His smiling face looked incredibly bright. They watched Kishir, leaning against the wall side by side with them, converse with others. He held the hand of Devron's aging father, asking if there was anything inconvenient about his stay, and exchanged words of joy with Zacchaeus Harton, their relationship having evolved from only exchanging opinions through letters. Even those who were intimidated by his imperial family member status, once they had a few words with him, swiftly relaxed. Revlin, observing this, smiled. The commander is truly remarkable. I have never admired or thought anyone to be amazing before, but now I can understand what it feels like. Yes. Could the term remarkable truly encapsulate Kishirla, or Yudir pondered briefly, letting out a soft breath. At that, Revlin suddenly widened his eyes in surprise and blinked several times. Ah, did you just smile? What? I think it's the first time I have seen you smile. Had he smiled? He was unsure, yet Revlin insisted with certainty that either had smiled. I felt when I was in the cavalry that the cavalry members followed and liked the commander sincerely, but it seems even more amazing that Yudir does too. I'm sorry, you are his assistant, so it's natural, but still. Before Revlin, who couldn't hide his sense of wonder, could say anything more, fortunately, a voice announced the end of the break. Yudir followed Kishir back into the court. As soon as Kishir took his seat, the three deputy commanders who had silently been guarding the chair Yudir was to sit in urgently motioned to him with their eyes and hands, asking him to tell them what had happened inside. It was only after Yudir reassured them that those in the waiting room were fine and there was no issues that the expressions of all the three brightened simultaneously. It's the turn of His Grace, the Duke of Paleta, and the cavalry side to be the witnesses. A voice announced the new order. All who were sitting on Apeto's side turned their gaze in unison to Kishir and the entrance of the waiting room behind him. The first to come out, following the dark corridor, was Revlin Sean Apeto, Dandelion, and the former servant of Lenore. My goodness, the third prince of Apeto? Even though he said he would sever ties with the family and leave to come this far, the unexpected entrance as the first stunt caused a momentary uproar inside. The representatives of the Apeto family also had perplexed expressions. However, they soon composed themselves, quickly hiding their flustered faces. It seems they have anticipated Revlin's appearance, but they would not have expected him to be the first. In trials of the Or Empire, the most crucial witnesses were usually placed last. Revlin, who showed a small smile towards Kishir and Yudir behind him, stood at the witness stand of the cavalry side and introduced himself. I am Revlin Sean Apeto. I swear before God that I will not feel a shred of shame for the words I am about to utter. Dandelion and Pip also made the same introduction and pledged. Revlin unflinchingly faced the numerous scrutinizing gazes directed at him, looked around, and then slowly opened his mouth. It's an undeniable fact that my uncle Beltrail and brother Lenore committed a wrong they should not have. They clearly knew what they were doing. It is not something that can be downsized. Prince Revlin, it's a lie. As if betraying our family isn't enough, how could you do this? Duke Paleta, aren't you ashamed? How could you bring a young prince who can't yet discern right from wrong into this situation? A sharp outcry erupted from the Apeto side. Revlin, without even glancing in their direction, held his chin up confidently. You claimed my brother and uncle have made a legitimate contract with the contractors for research. However, this is contrary to my understanding. Dandelion, who was placed as my guard and playmate, and Pep, who took care of my brother Lenore until the end, will testify this more clearly. The audience section burst louder once more. Revlin, who had stepped back, lightly grabbed and let go of the fingertips of his lover, stepping forward. Then he sighed deeply and glanced back. As Kishir nodded and smiled, a faint smile also appeared on the boy's face. Of course, he must be nervous. It was a situation that would make anyone nervous, but Revlin did better than anyone else, displaying a demeanor befitting of a noble boy who stepped forward to expose the truth. The reactions of those seated in the audience proved it. Following him, Dandelion, who was originally an ordinary commoner boy, told the story of how he was sold to the Apeto family by his parents after his awakening in a manner close to abduction. If Lenore had not capriciously chosen him as a playmate of Revlin after overhearing his age and birthday, his fate would have ended inside the mansion as well. Even after that, he was imprisoned inside the mansion for angering Lenore and was only rescued when the cavalry came to meet Revlin. At the time of his rescue, his condition was near death. However, in today's trial, more important than his relationship with Revlin was proving how cunningly the Apeto family lured awakeners and committed atrocious deeds. Hence, the boy explained his experiences as concisely as possible, as prepared beforehand. Although he had been well fed and rested and had received care, Dandelion was still a small and skinny boy that evoked the sympathy of those watching. Of course, that was only in appearance. His abilities were outstanding enough to give Ever, who went to rescue him, a hard time, but those watching didn't know that. Next, Lenore's servant, Pip, who had worked for the Apeto family for 7 years, told his story. His testimony was particularly focused on as he was the servant who received a letter on Lenore's last day and delivered it to Revlin. Prince Lenore often spoke about his work with Lord Beltrail. He frequently became angry about the supply and demand of awakeners despite the Apeto family's influence, which was reaching all over the empire, because they often died. "You rascal, do you know where you are to be spreading such lies? Please remain quiet in the court." The judge hastily stopped the representatives of the Apeto family who were showing their anger in front of stammering witnesses.